Thank you very much.
When David Crane got a hold of you and said, I would like you to come to Chautauqua to be part of the International Humanitarian Law Dialogs, do you have any idea what he was talking about or what to expect?
Not really, but knowing David Crane, the person I used to work with, I knew something was bound to happen, something big.
Yeah.
So I rose to the challenge, and I'm not disappointed.
Very nice of you to say. The fact that how did Joseph Kamara get involved with the international criminal law? Through your educational process, did you find this of interest?
Well, what happened was, you know, the conflict in Sierra Leone, and me being a Sierra Leonean, I've always been following things back home when it happened. And I was there when it all started. Mm-hmm. And I left Sierra Leone in 1997 for further studies in the United States. And while I was in Southern Methodist University Law School and the United Nations, we are working on setting up the special court in Sierra Leone. And it was set up. David Crane came to the US to explain to Sierra Leonean lawyers what the special court was all about, to get support for it. And I was in that meeting. And I think my contributions attracted him. And he went over after the session and asked me if I would like to go and work with him. Mm-hmm. But at that time, it was a bit too early for me to go back home. Mm-hmm. So it took about a year, and eventually I decided to go back. And that is how it happened.
So you become part of that. Was it difficult? Only because I assume you knew folks who were not only victims, but probably perpetrators.
Certainly, Greg. That was a very huge challenge for me. Going back as a prosecutor, despite the fact that I was a prosecutor home for 8 years. But victims were family members. Mm-hmm. Perpetrators were equally family members. It was very difficult. I can recall one particular occasion when I went to court, and one of the witnesses for the defense was an uncle of mine. But because they use pseudonyms, and the names are so common, you wouldn't really know who the witness would be, right, except for what he's coming to testify to. And so we went to court, and they're sitting across from me. It's an uncle of mine, a member of the RUF. Right. So things like that do happen, and but in the course of time and with experience, you get to be dispassionate about issues. And at the same time, I felt being in the middle, which was quite good, because there are victims on the one side and there are perpetrators on the other side. So I knew I was right there, I have to serve justice, and I felt quite good in doing that.
I've seen your opening statement. David gave me a copy of it, and you did a magnificent job.
Thank you.
And were you part of the inner circle as decisions were being made regarding Charles Taylor?
With the case of Charles Taylor, not initially, because when the process of Charles Taylor started, it started way back in 2003, and I wasn't there. I got there in 2004. Mm-hmm. A lot of things were still happening, and of course, discussing the indictment, we'll discuss the indictment. And but as to the final type of charges, at the time I was not that senior, mm-hmm, and but it didn't change much from what we decided. Right. The prosecutor then, David Crane's policy was an open discussion thing. We'll all discuss, contribute, because they kind of have respect for each and every person's opinion. Mm-hmm. Yes, and so all of us contributed to the indictment. Eventually, what turned out to be the final indictment was nothing different from what we discussed. And in terms of political approaches, no, I didn't have an insider information to the politics of it. But from the legal standpoint, yes, we participated.
When he was indicted, what was the buzz in Sierra Leone around Freetown?
Well, the indictment really was a huge information breakthrough. Freetown was excited, the whole country was excited. And interestingly enough, it's just a matter of the law. But factually, people know the role Charles Taylor performed in the Sierra Leone conflict. Mm. And so there is general yearning for justice. So that was the first outcry of thank you when the indictment was unsealed. But come to the time of the arrest, you'll be surprised. People, when Charles Taylor was brought over to the special court, and I was sitting in my office, I could see right across the window to the helipad. And people were standing on rooftops, climbing on tops of trees to see this powerful warlord in handcuffs. It was a huge event. And I had a shout. It was like you were in a big game in a stadium when people saw him step off the helicopter. I thought we were in a stadium. a huge shout.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
Have you been following that? I mean, obviously that's part of your jurisdiction, but have you gone to The Hague quite a bit?
Oh yes, I do go to The Hague quite often, and part of my job is I do the investigative work. I supervise investigations, and I participate in the processes. I do the legal administration, and as a deputy, when Steve is away, I kind of manage everything. And because of the traveling that is involved with the Office of Prosecutor, he travels quite often. And so I participate in decisions, and I have not been formally in court to argue an opinion or anything in the court, but I kind of follow up management-wise. Yes, we see it on decisions, and any legal decisions that ought to be taken, we get to know about it, and we make our own contributions, and yes, I'm on top of it.
Well, now that Stephen Rapp is going to be permanently away, and you basically become the interim chief prosecutor. Are you interested in becoming the chief prosecutor?
Yes, I am interested, but the ultimate decision is with the UN Secretary General, and I know there are political considerations as well, and I can understand that. But I think that we need continuity, and the court is coming to a closure.
Right.
The time is so short, and bringing in somebody new might create some impasse, and I'm not opposing that, because somebody could come in that could fit in well, and if that happens, I'm happy. What we want is the completion of the job, and the conviction that I had, I came in to start a job, and I want to see it completed and finished on time, and so if it happens, I'm happy.
Yeah. If
I'm given the position, I'm looking forward to it. I hope it happens, but if it doesn't happen, I wouldn't begrudge anyone, as long as the work gets done.
Exactly. Yesterday they asked some of the former prosecutors what the legacies of their particular courts were. I'll ask you, as you kind of look at a crystal ball, what's the legacy of the Special Court for Sierra Leone?
Well, I always tell people that the first thing is establishment of the rule of law. The Special Court has been able to introduce that aspect in Sierra Leonean politics and the general Sierra Leonean attitude. Now, when we indicted Chief Nganaman, the former Deputy Minister of Defense, he was a hero to people. It signaled one thing, that no one is above the law.
Right.
Everyone was shaken. And today it is reflected in body politic. And like I mentioned in the conference, that even after the elections, Sierra Leone is used to be accompanied with violence after elections. Every election will be accompanied with violence. This is one of the first time there was no violence. And when people were being interviewed about it, they said, oh, the Special Court is here.
Yeah.
We don't want to be indicted. So now people know that there is law, and that law is above everyone. And part of our outreach is the legacy of the court. I went to one of our outreach meetings. An 8-year-old girl asked a question about command responsibility. And the way she asked the question, she knew what she was asking about. I was impressed. And this is not something common. So if today we can have kids of that age having knowledge of command responsibility, we've done a good job in letting people know what justice is and what international criminal law is.
Have you seen a relationship between the tribunal, its understanding of the rule of law, and the economics of Sierra Leone? You know, it was a fairly poor country, and have you seen it kind of, there's a relationship?
There is a difficulty in that area because the level of poverty.
Right.
And people have always accused the court that so much millions have been spent already, and that millions could be spent on development projects. There is some justification down that road. But my point of view has always been that there is no price for justice. There is no price for justice. We may think 2, 5, 10, 20 million, 80 million is a lot of money. But I tell you, without peace, that is nothing.
Right.
No one can pay price for peace. And that is what the Special Court has contributed to in Sierra Leone. And people back home are accustomed to measuring success with tangibles. They want to see good roads, huge buildings, like in the Western world. So because justice is an intangible, it's not something you can grasp or hold. So it's hard for them to compute it in monetary terms. But I think the success of the Special Court lies in the fact that we've been able to establish justice to a large extent within the perception of the people.
When I say David Crane, what's he mean to you?
He means a mentor, a solid leader, I went to that court as a rookie in international criminal law. He guided me through. He saw a potential in me, which I didn't even see in myself, and he encouraged me. And I've been working through that, and I'm happy always to hear his name. So when you say David Crane, I look for leadership and support, and he's always been there. And that has been exemplified in the last 2 days when I came back. Yeah. I was very proud to see him, and I'm sure he's feeling proud to see how far I've gone.
Yeah, well, there's no question. He talks about you a lot. Yeah. His successor was Sir Desmond de Silva.
Yes.
What was his, in the sequence of things, what was his contribution to the Sierra Leone court?
Desmond de Silva was the Deputy Prosecutor to David Crane. And so there is not much of a policy gap between the two. What I may point out, though, that whilst David Crane was more administrative-wise, more focused, and because he started the court, there was a lot of politics involved, and he have kind of a powerful interplay in the diplomatic world as well, which helped to establish the court. And Desmond de Silva, Sir Desmond de Silva, now, when the court has been established, came with the legal aspect. He's a courtroom person. So that is one distinction. While Sir Desmond is a courtroom person, David Crane was more that administrator. He set up everything. He was able to get the support and get the machinery working. And Desmond came in for the court side, and he went to court. And he did what he could, and he was very good at it in the court sessions.
Then he was followed Stephen Rapp followed Sir Desmond. Again, any changes in the course of things through Steve?
Well, the changes I would see is the fact of things became difficult financially for the court. And it took the time of Stephen Rapp to be going out finding funding. And on hindsight, one thing I would suggest, if this were to be replicated elsewhere, is that we have a permanent source of income for this court's funding, because it became, I would say, 60 or 70% of his time going around finding money, which was unfortunate for a prosecutor coming in. And but luckily for us all, we had a solid prosecutorial team which has been working over the years. So he was able to steer the leadership, stay on top of it, while at the same time able to work around the states and gather support and funding for the court. He is a good blend between Sir Desmond de Silva and David Crane. He works well in diplomacy and works well with the court. And he has tremendous experience from the ICTR and elsewhere in court processes.
Since you've been so close to this, and certainly with that leadership, if you had somebody would ask you about starting up a court brand new system, what would you do different?
From the three?
Yeah.
What I would do different is I would want to ensure that, like I mentioned earlier, the funding is stable. And once the funding is stable, my absolute focus will be on the trial. Absolute focus will be on the trial. And the other thing I will do different will be I will pay more attention to the victims. And I think that comes from the fact that my background. Yes. It is one thing when the conflict is not from your country. And when it is from your country, the feelings are different. And so from that experience, I think I'll pay more attention to the victims.
Do you feel a heavier burden that here you from Sierra Leone, you're the top prosecutor within the Sierra Leone Tribunal? Do you feel that at all?
Of course, yes, I do. And since the time I went to the court, I carry the face of the court wherever I go. People associate me with the special court. When even I go to visit friends, after preliminary courtesies, the next issue is a special court. So that has been it. I carry the face of the court, and the failings of the court have always been heaped upon me. The successes of the court I've gained from that as well. So, but I'm accustomed to it now in the last 5 years. Yes.
At some point, the Sierra Leone Tribunal will be concluded. What would you like to do?
What I would like to do, plan A, is set up my law firm in Sierra Leone and work on human rights abuses and take up constitutional issues and train young lawyers and then set standards in the ethical aspects of practice. And that is my plan A. If I get to do that, I'll be happy. I know it's a difficult task, particularly in shaping. I want to transfer the skills that I've acquired in the course of the years into the domestic practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot do it alone, but I want to start all the same.
Right.
Yes, that's my plan A. Plan B, then if anything comes up international that is attractive enough, worthy my course and my policies and my disposition, then I may go for that. But plan A is that.
We are so thrilled to have you here. It's a real bonus, and we look forward to next year. You can, because Dave, we're going to do it again.
Thank you, Greg. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for your family. They were quite supportive, and thank you for everyone. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.